healthcare organizations are kind of championing AI themselves. They may even be using an AI app almost without permission. There are a lot of people, this is something a doctor said to me this morning, that a lot of people, in a lot of cases, the partnership starts with a single practitioner in the organization who is not waited for permission, who is actually using some kind of AI point solution. And I wonder if you can speak to that. And then they're kind of championing that to the rest of the organization.
Absolutely. So firstly, hello and good afternoon. For those of you I haven't met over this medium before, my name is Ekanjali. I am a physician by background, practicing here in London in the UK. And I also work in health tech and digital transformation for several organizations, actually. So I'm well versed in this sphere and have certain experiences around this myself. So on to your question, Jose, around having that. Really what you're describing actually is a digital champion. Now, these digital champions are getting easier and easier to find in some capacity. Because if you think about it, a physician or a user or a clinician in a hospital uses tech outside of those four walls as well. So often we are interacting with far more established, far more developed technological solutions as consumers outside of the realm of healthcare. And actually then when we come into the healthcare sphere, it's like taking a step back in time. And you think, why are these processes so difficult? Why can we not have more streamlined processes? It's easier for me to buy a song on iTunes than it is to, write X, Y, and Z in a clinical environment. So that opens the conversation and opens the dialogue, because ultimately clinicians are users outside of healthcare as well in terms of technology, AI, and the opportunity there. So it's, I think, working out who those digital champions are, the ones with influence, and then actually targeting them, working with them, understanding what their key requirements are, what their understanding of the organization is, and how they can then build that out with you to really take the adoption next step around the tech solution. So yeah, that's probably my starting point, Jose.
Have you been talking to people about something's changed in this conversation since December? This is what I'm seeing. I've noticed it myself.
Yes.
I talk to other people. They go, oh yeah, something happened in December in terms of the excitement around the partnerships between AI vendors and healthcare has exploded. And when it first happened, I thought this can't be right, because you don't get a surge of interest in December during Christmas. It must be some kind of blip. Are you hearing that as well, or am I just hearing things?
That could be possible. Both could be possible, of course. But ultimately, yes, the conversation around AI, I think, fills our political pages, and certainly is a conversation on the tips of everyone's tongues outside of just the healthcare industry. So with the announcements with DeepSeek and the conversations that's unfolded, quantum computing and the announcements there, technology and the opportunity that it affords healthcare, I think everyone's imagination is being unlocked. What we have to remember, and I will always come back as a physician, this particular industry is very nuanced and it's special. I think our users are ultimately patients or those who provide care to patients. And so it's really important that we keep the governance, the conversation around how we are innovating, how we're monitoring that, data, privacy, consent, that in our minds as we innovate. I think that's really important. Also to build the trust with the users at the end of the day, because healthcare, I think, is different from a couple of other industries where you can apply the same sorts of technologies, and having that nuanced conversation with your vendor, with your user, I think gives you a different edge. So yes, absolutely. The opportunity in healthcare, it particularly here in the UK, we as a workflow, certainly technology bridges a lot of the gaps that we have here around the workforce and opens up conversations there. So there's huge opportunity, excitement, but at the same time, responsibility that this conversation unlocks.
Thank you, Ekanjali. Now I'm going to go to our second speaker, and we're going to come back to Ekanjali. And Paolo Bartoli, if you can actually turn on Paolo's mic. Hello.
It's on, yeah.
Great. Welcome. I wonder if you can introduce yourself, because sorry, I kind of ran over Ekanjali's introductions there, but if you can introduce yourself before we get into the questions.
Yes. Actually, this is useful because I'm not a technician. My background is in marketing, starting in industry, heavy industry, let's say, really manufacturing, and then getting into pharmaceutical through OTC and then RX products, and then digital transformation, which means a higher degree of importance of services. Digital gets into hardware through services, actually, and what I've been working on were a bit of a mix of services and hardware. I'm really excited about this discussion on AI because I must confess that originally I was a bit dubious about the old hype that was around the first, let's say, public appearances of generative intelligence. Apart from the fact that in the past, large language models and machine learning were not a new thing, as in the industry, the subject is not a new subject at all, but it is absolutely in, let's say, the consumerization of its application. And what we see now and what is very interesting for management level and partnership, or all the phases that are across the choice of what to use to go through processes and to enhance processes and get a better outcome for the customer. This level is a very variegated and very undefined yet level. But what I see is what was already said by Ekanjali, the fact that you get the person, a single person, using a solution that has a high degree of sophistication and a high degree of technical complication. It's not anymore something complex, it's something that's complicated. Can be even that efficient, actually, if you don't use it correctly. And that's a big question, how to use it correctly. So it is very intriguing to understand at what level this evolution can get into processes. One of the questions we were, let's say, reasoning about, and what is quite puzzling, is how to get the right tool inside the organization for the right processes, for the right outcome. And why this? Because I feel as a user that what we see probably a bit of a hype around artificial intelligence is a great expectation on a great tool. This is a tool that changes so much the capacity of an organization that it is at the moment something that nobody can do, let's say, at least mentally without. But then one must understand what to use and how to use it. And it comes to me the idea that we are in the phase where we are in a sort of bring your own AI. It's like bring your own device if you have ever heard this about GDPR, for example, bring your own device is an issue because people bring their smartphones into organizations and use their devices for working inside the boundaries of an organization. In some cases, they cannot do that. In some others, there are rules. Here we are looking at a sort of bring your own AI, people experimenting within the organization with services that probably are not validated by the organization. And this is one issue. And the other issue is to understand how to embed these tools into the process. First of all, to understand what tools are there around, because the market is not made by the producer, but by the user, actually. So we users must know what we are going to use. So that's a big point where we are probably getting out of the, let's say, laboratory where the main actors are technicians who know fairly well the subject, and we are getting into the phase where users are beginning to weigh in increasingly and probably asking for things that are maybe apparently not very relevant to the technology, but are very relevant to the adoption. So all the risks that we run while using such a sophisticated technology, together with the great advantages that we can have, and understanding where the middle is, because we cannot do the job of technicians. For example, in communication, a marketing manager can't become a creative, a graphic creative or whatever, unless he stops making his job as a marketing manager, for example, because anyway, these tools are not something that you just turn on and then you're automatically able to use them to your standard of needs. So at a certain level, they are a tool for the already specialized professionals. Probably this will be transferred gradually to the lay users, as every tool done this since, I would say, the advent of the personal computer in offices, where every manager had its personal computer and had to learn how to write a letter, not asking his secretary anymore. And eventually he didn't even had to wait to have the letter delivered, but he just used the email. And then there were all the problems of how to use emails. Well, now we have the problem of understanding how to use these tools. First of all, we have to know what's around, what they can do, and how we can use them. And there are many faceted aspects there, that from usability to security to safety to intellectual property protection and all that sort of things, that probably now personal data protection, that now with the bring your own AI approach are not really catered for, and probably are a new door that is opened to risk for the company, for the organization.
Can I ask you, Paolo, and we don't have a lot of time before we're going to have to go to Rocco in a minute. What advice would you have? What role does leadership have to play where they don't have this certainty about what the technology is? Not everybody in the organization is going to agree on where this technology means, where it's going, what the regulations, but they have to make some kind of decision.
Yes. I feel there are two layers. Let's say you have artificial intelligence, or this kind of supports that can get into the processes within the company. The company may be producing something that is not linked to artificial intelligence themselves. For example, I'm producing nails or bolts. A bolt is a piece of metal. It doesn't embed anything concerning artificial intelligence for the moment, at least, or even a syringe, for example. A simple syringe. For the moment, it's just a physical tool. But the process behind it to produce it, or even only to manage the administration steps of a sales process, these can be activated. Well, now they can be supported by artificial intelligence tools, and tomorrow they can be activated by agents. And probably that side of innovation is something that can even not be visible at the final product, but are probably points that should be very heavy in the capacity and the sustainability and productivity of a company. And then there is what can be embedded into the final product, something that goes in the hands of the user. And probably there I would see at the same time a need on professional services that embed services or products that embed actually AI solutions, but also consumer solutions that have AI support. It is such a pervasive technology because actually it gets into something that we don't have to, let's say, intervene directly, but it does something that we have already been doing forever. I mean, these are human activities and putting together knowledge and information. And with these instruments, you have less time needed and less effort, personal effort needed. The outcome is something that cuts corners. Of course, doing this, there are enormous risks on many levels, and that's why we should be knowing better how these tools can be applied, not how they work really, because let's say I don't need to know how my electronic ignition works for my car, for example. I know it works, and if it doesn't, probably it's an electric fault. But that's not my point. That's not interesting for me. I just need to know how to drive my car. And so these tools are going to be new cars that we are going to drive, learn how to drive them, and not be driven by them, probably, hopefully.
Focus on the outcomes.
Yeah.
I want to go, and we're going to come back to Paolo. By the way, everybody, when this event ends, there's going to be an after party, and we're going to put a link. Now, we've actually got two chats here. We have a chat in Google Meet, and we have a chat on LinkedIn Live, and we have people on Google Meet, and we have people on LinkedIn Live. So we actually have two audiences. If you're having, by the way, if anyone's listening to this and they're having difficulty, you maybe, if you've got both open, you want to close one. And that might be causing a problem for some people, but they might have a LinkedIn Live open, and then they might have a Google Meet open, and that's causing problems with the audio. When we go, so next stage in our journey, we have made the decision to seek out partnerships. Either now we're talking to people who are AI startups looking to partner, or even organizations that are not AI startups, but they're going past the initial early adopter. They're looking to form that relationship. Now we're going to go to Rocco Barone, our go-to-market expert. And Rocco, I wonder if you can introduce yourself, because I know you appeared in a lot of webinars recently, but not everybody here knows you. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Jose. So I will introduce myself. So I'm an engineer, biomedical engineer, then further MBA and even a degree in psychology. I am currently a consultant and project manager for market access and a mentor for startups. Specialized in artificial intelligence and innovation in MedTech.
All right. I wonder if you could take us about the early stage of partnerships. So we've gone past the early adopter, and I wonder if you could talk to us about venturing out, the early stages of finding partnerships, feeling them out. And I remember when I was speaking to you earlier, you said something about ecosystems and how to navigate those. I'm wondering if you can speak to that phase.
Definitely.
What advice would you have to people at that phase of their journey?
Definitely, Jose. So indeed, now we have the early adopters. Mostly what is required is that where the company is created, where the startup is created, you find early adopters, healthcare centers that are willing to use the solution, that are trying, that are piloting, that are giving some sort of feedback. And then we are at the following stage where actually you go there to the market. It's not an incubator anymore. It's not the accelerator. It's going in the wild. And in the wild, certainly in the jungle, you need partnerships. You need alliances to create. Here, I want to refer to some monkeys tribes where it is not the strongest wins; it is the ones with the best allies that actually is at the head of those tribes. So we are in this jungle. And what we may look for is certainly partnerships. I'm not just talking about market experts, which are certainly useful. I'm talking about industry partners, companies to create a collaboration with that can position your product very close to the needs of those customers or those healthcare organizations. So here, apart from technological platform, we know the typical ones, the cloud ones. I'm talking about devices or products that can be combined with your services, that can be combined with yours. Even looking for partnerships in healthcare organizations within their innovation departments. Certainly, that can be very, very useful. And there, after looking for collaborations, what you want to do is to certainly look for experts in the markets. There is not anymore at least in healthcare, one product fits all. You need people that are able to introduce you to the centers, people that are experts in the market, people that can consult and advise. I like to call them networkers, champions, connectors, where that they can introduce you to make warm introductions, do reaching out to the right entry points, and know the technology. So this is partnership in a broad level. When you introduce a product or a service to a healthcare center, it's not just a clinical part, it's not just a technical part. There's a lot of, commercial part, there's a lot of regulatory, there's a lot of IT, legal, there's really a lot more. So here, partnership, even within your organization, within your startup, or within the healthcare center itself, that's very effective. That's very important to have from both sides. So there's really a collaboration. It's not you're not selling, you're not proposing it to one person only. It's actually, despite it may come from one person, from one champion, it really enlarges to a much more broad decision making.
I wonder, Millie, do you have a follow-up question? Did you want to?
Yeah, Jose, like in the stream, there are questions, especially talking about the constraints and bottlenecks about implementing AI in the MedTech ecosystem, especially talking about the regulations, especially talking about the simulations of human trials and FDA compliances, HIPAA compliances. People want to know more about it. And by the way, everyone, the chat link's also open. We are looking forward for your question to shoot out to our resource person today.
I wonder if you could, Rocco, if you could speak to the present moment. With the compliance questions, we're going to hold fire on them for a moment because we're going to bring on.
Yeah, that definitely a fire to say, yes.
I wonder if you could speak to the present moment, Rocco. December, January, February. But what's happening now? Why has everything changed?
Well, this is a very interesting moment now for particularly for the AI in healthcare, because after the initial phase, the initial hype with a lot of proposal not really standing, not really clinically proved, now we are finally arriving to the plateau of the hype curve where we see technologically interesting and reliable solutions in the market. We see that partnerships formed within companies, within institutions that we can rely on. There are certainly, there's a general knowledge about AI. It's not anymore that part of the fear that was present in the society. Now we see it as a curiosity sometimes, but even an opportunity most of the times, where we see the effects of such technology into the healthcare centers. Therefore, with this stabilizing, with the people giving more confidence to this technology, certainly there's a lot of interest, implementation. I'm working together with a big organization, and we are at the moment where there is a lot of AI projects going on in different categories, even in different departments, radiology, cardiology, dermatology. There's a lot of different proposals and different project management that we are doing, and indeed, given these opportunities, certainly it is interesting to leave this moment where we are implementing those solutions. Now, I want to speak a bit about this fear that it's not anymore present. There is a part of it, but it's not replacing anybody up to now. At least there's a support. It is really a support for for the work of the clinicians, not only also for operational part, and that certainly it is an opportunity to catch.
Yeah, I think it's like people. I don't think there's that same level of concern as there was last year that doctors are going to go away. People want, and they're seeing these more as almost like a prosthetic. And I wonder, Ekanjali, can we bring you on here just for a few minutes?
Yes, this doctor is certainly not going to go away.
Ekanjali's turning into a pumpkin in a few minutes. I just want to get her back on before she goes.
No problem at all. I mean, there are a couple of interesting themes there that I want to pick up on, Jose, but I'll let you ask your question first.
Oh, I want to know what you think about the change. And I know you work in digital transformation.
Yeah.
In London. So you've got your finger on the pulse, and there's been a change. I mean, and then you mentioned this earlier, and he's just been talking about it. I wonder if you could speak more about the change, or am I imagining it?
No, I don't think you are. I think you've got your finger on the pulse in that there does feel like a bit of a cultural shift, if we can call it that, in healthcare and AI. There's a sense of inevitability around it, but that also opens up a whole nother conversation, because just because we see it in use across these many trusts or these many organizations in healthcare, is it right for me? Who is the right vendor? So organizations without any experience of that are still rather risk adverse, as they should be in healthcare, but don't have any knowledge or relationships built with perhaps startups. So don't usually take that early adopter approach that Rocco mentioned. So I think one way to look at it, and I like that framework that Rocco pointed out, that you have those early adopters in a sort of incubator stage and then post-incubator stage. So really within larger organizations, having a look at, hang on, where am I in my developer journey? What is the size of this organization? So if it's, say, a number of NHS trusts or one that serves, say, a smaller community, strategically, which am I correct to target? Which am I going to be able to provide most value to? And that value in a partnership setting, in this conversation, is not necessarily the tech itself. It's everything you can do outside of that. So say you are a smaller solution, technology or a team. If you are approaching also a smaller organization that is resource poor and showing an ability to develop a relationship where you aren't just providing the technology and saying, here you go, because you know that they don't have the infrastructure to support that around them. You're actually working with them to make sure, hang on, do you know what your measurable outcomes are at the end of this pilot? How can we make sure we achieve them with you? How can we give you some adoption metrics that we can give you early on so you can see if your clinicians are using the technology and not, and you can make those interventions early. So really you are supporting the organization. You're not leaving them to their own devices. And so that's something that you're essentially taking on beyond ultimately the technology that you're providing. Now, in contrast, in a bigger organization, it's having the cognizant awareness that you are talking to a table of influencers, ultimately. There's going to be very few sole decision makers around that. And so the value that you're providing is to that team wholly, and you might need to bring your whole team to that table to be able to speak to their lens in various different angles. So it's that awareness of, hang on, who am I targeting? How best can I support them? And developing that relationship in that partnership setting in a strategic way. Strategy meaning the choice that you're making around how you're going to approach them. That's one thing. The final piece is really in a clinical setting. I think we have something to learn as health tech from pharma, right? Because there's a real sense of clinical validity around a new drug that's introduced. So you are trying to show that the pharma industry does this excellently. You can't just come to the market and say, this is a great drug, we've developed it and you should use it. You want to have some data to back that up, because these are patients, these are lives, and they could be seriously harmed or ruined or taken away if our technology, we can't prove it supports what we say it does support. So I think as an industry, we have something to learn from that industry around how we present our solutions as well. So having some data around how it's been used, how you anticipate it to be used, being able to support that both quantitatively and qualitatively, I think would be hugely useful. And I'd love to see more of that in the conversation.
Excellent. Something for a future event. We're going to dive into that, Ekanjali.
Sure.
And next speaker, I feel like a game show host when I say that. And this is where we get to the boy. This is the difficult bit. And this is where these questions you brought up, Miller, we're going to bring them up now.
Exactly.
And Jovan, a lot of people know Jovan, but I wonder if you can introduce yourself as well, Jovan, because not everybody knows you.
That's a good thing, I guess. Could be a problem. Nice. Thank you for having me here. Nice to meet you all. My name is Jovan Stevovic. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Cino. Cino.io is an Italian company specialized in regulatory topics. So the topics we mentioned before, we assist hundreds of startups on GDPR compliance, on HIPAA compliance, and now since 1 year, pretty much all the AI-specific related questions with AI Act, but also specific questions that are coming from stakeholders and partners that startups and companies are receiving in their product development.
I wonder if you could start off, before we go to the questions, with detail from your experience. Because I know a lot of people when they're negotiating partnerships about AI, and I was spoken to Kristen, I spoke to a lawyer recently, and he said there's a lot of these negotiations, they're talking about liability very early on. Who's liable for what and when?
It's the main key.
Big pains.
So it's the main issue at the end why regulatory exists there, why regulatory compliance exists there. There is some sort of liability either towards the end users, as was mentioned before, or in B2B space, companies towards companies, because it's a chain of responsibility or liability questions. So that's why we are asked to ensure GDPR compliance and HIPAA compliance. We're working, for example, with large players, or when we want to access to the data of a hospital. So by working with many startups, I've seen projects from idea creation to certification to sales, partnerships, and scalability of companies. And each of these stages presents different challenges. For example, in the initial product development, sometimes startups are very concerned about testing their app, their service with few users. I always tell them there is no such a thing, as a risk in early stage startups. Go ahead, test it with users. No worries about privacy, data protection issues if you are testing with 10 people what you have created. That's essential. That's the dynamism is essential for you to go ahead and develop a first prototype. But then challenges come up when you want to do a clinical study or clinical trial, and you want to get access to data that are stored in a hospital and get audited by an ethical committee that will ask you all the data about data protection and your risks and your documents in order to establish this partnership at the end in order to certify your product. And then the last stage and the most challenging stage where I see startups struggling is, and where liability comes into the game, is when startups or companies want to sell to public institutions or to hospitals or to pharma or to insurance. Insurances, for example, is very, very common. The direct sales through insurances, for example, here in Germany, where I'm based, there is either digital therapeutics reimbursement process with the DIGA or direct sales through insurances. If you go one way or the other, you are going to be audited, and they will ask you a lot of documentation. When it comes specifically to AI, there are two types of challenges. What I see with startups. First challenge is that with all stakeholders, the first sales meetings, you will need to convince them that there is nothing weird about your solution, that your solution is nothing really scary or not going to impersonificate is everything under control, because AI sometimes is perceived something out of control, that it self-evolves, right? So these kind of questions, you need to reassure your stakeholders about the scope of your product. And then the second session that will happen during the due diligence with your potential customers, that's the toughest one. That's where the DPOs, the data protection officers, those quite evil guys from public institutions or hospitals or pharmas, are going to ask you really tough questions. And I encourage people that are interested in this topic to to connect on LinkedIn. I'm trying to write a lot of content about this topic. I'm trying somehow to suggest how to behave, how to deal with these things, because those people are evil because they have a liability. They have really big risk on their shoulders. This role of data protection officer is being created with some good intentions, but some challenges. So these people are really protective and behaving in a safe way, and they can kill projects. So last thing, they can stop projects because they don't want to have any risk related to their life, personal life and job that they are doing, because the data management, AI compliance and so on can be so tricky to manage, to define the scope, to deploy to the audience, that DPOs or public institutions, especially public institutions, can block and kill a project. So a lot of challenges.
Miller, do we have another question?
Yes, thank you, Jovan. So we have an interesting question from Nimal Valipuram. So he's asking, like, despite all the excitements and anticipation, what could go wrong in AI in healthcare? The second part of it, what should we be looking to mitigate any potential issues in terms of implementation? Yeah, anyone can take on that question, I believe.
Can we actually give that question to Brian?
Yes, Brian is on.
Brian M. Green. We've kind of skipped over him. Brian, were you able to? Are you able? Can we get? Can we turn on Brian's microphone?
Yeah, Brian is.
There we go.
Yes, Brian.
Hi.
Brian is,
Sorry.
Brian, can you keep in mind, you've only got about 2 or 3 minutes.
Sorry, just repeat the question. I missed.
Despite all the excitement going on, this is very broad, Brian. So you're gonna have to narrow this down. What could go wrong in AI in healthcare? What we should looking to mitigate any potential issues and implementations? That's really you're gonna have to narrow that down.
So I think Kanji earlier kind of boiled down a lot of thoughts that are really important here. First of all, we really need to start with use cases and defining use cases. I think some of the challenges we've seen and like why there's less of the hype around AI and now people focusing on more of how do we practically do this, and people in healthcare are starting to embrace this but wonder what the potential is for them, is around ill-defined use cases, right? And so let's start with the use case. Are we trying to develop a diagnostic tool? Are we trying to develop a second opinion tool? Are we trying to develop a treatment recommendation engine? So depending on what use case we're really trying to develop, then we need to bring in the metrics and the things that really tie into business use cases, right? So if the use case is diagnostic, then the metrics need to be around how many more patients are receiving diagnoses more quickly that actually match with their actual diagnosis that turns out to be after they see a specialist, right? Does this happen in 2 days as opposed to 3 months? Things like this, specific metrics that tie the use case to the business, aligned business metrics that make a difference, of course, financially for the business, for the hospital, but also in terms of patient care and outcomes. This is what's critical. And I think that will really help with implementation. Obviously, that interfaces with the regulatory environment, which requires you to have certain risk mitigated and certain reporting mechanisms in place. But defining these metrics up front, being aware of what you're trying to achieve, is going to tie it all together kind of very neatly. You'll have what you need to do from a governance perspective, from a compliance perspective. You'll have the assurances that the leadership at a healthcare institution need, and you'll be able to move forward with developing and implementing AI solutions that are, really working within the workflows and within the people that need to utilize them within healthcare settings. So that's kind of a long answer to.
It's very good, Brian. I'm glad you said that. I'm very glad you said that, because I've also been hearing it. And someone said to me, Jose, you're doing all this content. It's great, but you're always up in the clouds. You've got to drill down into the use cases now. And I'm always kind of like, but 75% of the audience isn't there. But maybe that's what we got to do. We got to usher them over. And we're going to hear more from Brian in the after party. Brian, would you be able to come and would you be able to host one of the breakout rooms in the after party?
Sure. Yes. I'm here now. My laptop was up earlier, but I think it's working fine now.
Final speaker, Ruban. We're in the home stretch now.
Hi. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for getting up really early to join us. And I'm wondering if you can introduce. And now, of course, you're normally a host in this webinar series, but there's a lot of people who are in SenzMate's webinar series now for the very first time, and they don't know who you are.
Yes.
I wonder if you can introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jose. I think it's so, refreshing to be on the other side and listening to all these amazing experts discussing all the process of selling to healthcare as well as how AI is transforming. Anyway, my name is Ruban Kanapathippillai. I live in the heart of the Silicon Valley, actually. I've been here for 32 years. I graduated from Stanford. And since then, I have went ahead and started two of my own startups with billion-dollar exits to multinational companies, and building technologies for utilization by the masses. My first company was Voice over IP, which we are all using now. I did it 27 years ago, 1999. I started my first company to connect the world together in enterprise level. And then the second one I did in the Web 2.0, where customers can come, like Facebooks and LinkedIn's and all that. They used to use the product which I built. And so that is my second background. Since then, I've been working with many startups mainly in the MedTech, and I have been partnering with SenzMate for last 6-7 years, helping them, go global, because the capability these guys have. We'll talk about that at the end. But my background is, entrepreneur, new technology, and go to the masses.
All right. By the way, everybody, I don't know if the people are putting the after party link on the LinkedIn, but I know some people are watching on LinkedIn. And
we have published the Jose. At the same time, it's in the chat as well. Soon after we closing this session, and everyone can join the after party for the networking with all the experts that we had today.
Ruban, I kind of want to ask you a question. If I can ask you a question, Ruban.
Oh, go ahead, please. I'd love to, tell about
when negotiation, they hit a standstill. And I know, actually, this is someone said to me this morning. He's saying a lot of people who are starting AI in healthcare and healthcare organizations, it starts with an initial champion who often goes a bit rogue and starts using an AI point solution, probably something B2C, and just starts using it without getting anyone's permission. And then they decide, we're going to make then starts championing it. And often when they do this, the rest of the organization may not be as enthusiastic. And what would you advise for solution providers? How can they enable when they hit a standstill in those early negotiations?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. I think there has been what we have been discussing over last 50 minutes actually sets it up in a right way. What that means is, don't try to go and sell a product and say, it's great for you and all that. How you look at it is, first you look at your healthcare providers or MedTech, pioneers, and find out who are their customers, your customers' customers. First, you identify them first and see what are the problem they are facing. And the second one is, as an institutional level, all of us are trying to make money somehow using this technology and all that, and find out where the inefficiency or where that can be the productivity can be improved. So what you had to speak to them is not about me, I have a product, do you want to buy, versus saying you have a problem and you need some solution to address it. And like one of the example I give people is when we had my second company, I went to EMC, which is one of the global company, and I had to sell them the product. And rather than us going and saying what are the features and all that, we went and talked to them and said, if you don't transform your technology, there is another company which is already eating you for lunch, and they are going to scale. They are going to be the next Muhammad. So by partnering with us, by taking our technology, you can go and transform yourself. The same thing for the healthcare, because there is a cost advantage. But if you don't do the technology transformation early and right way, there are smaller, people who are nimble and agile. They can come in and kill it. So the important part of it is you understand the end customer value. And the second part is make sure when you're negotiating with these people, what are the levels of things? Because you don't want to go and say it costs $1 billion and they will walk away. And you have to make sure you understand, be reasonable, but you have to be profitable. So there are reality, the realization you speak of, and immediately people will connect with you in a human way. And that is what the healthcare is about. That is what MedTech is about. And then they will start collaborating and telling. I think you talked about coach or some kind of helper inside, and identify that and start collaborating with them.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I have one question, Jose. So probably
Final question.
Yeah, final question from Nimal Valipuram again. Are companies insiders worried about potential risk to their own jobs when they adopt AI? Is that a realistic concern or not?
Yeah, actually, that's an interesting perspective of looking at it. What I tell people is, if you don't transform or if you don't adapt to this technology, you already lost it. I mean, they are going to find a way to do that. So what this transformation helps you is, first, you get educated and you work with people like us who are in the forefront of creating. Like another thing is, I used to work with Oracle and I used to work with their procurement team people, and they love working with me because I used to help them educate them on what this technology and what the transformation is happening outside. Because when they hear that, they immediately say, oh, I need to be working with you because you are giving me ammunition for me to keep my job. Yes, you can say that they're going to lose the job, but the problem is, if you don't do it, you're going to lose the job, even worse. And if you do it, and if you are in the forefront, if you are driving the transformation, if you are partnering with people like SenzMate or the digital transformation companies, you will be considered a front runner to even lead this transformation. So my take would be is, better get on the train or you would be left out.
Yeah, thank you, Ruban. It's been always amazing to talk to you and getting inspired. And today's call, it's amazing to have 5 resource persons, and probably we are the hottest webinar series at this point of time in terms of MedTech. We had over 1,400 registrations and an amazing audience today, and we have a lot of people looking at in our live streaming. So it won't be end at this point. So we have to continue this discussion, and we don't find another opportunity to meet all these experts and get more networking knowledge and getting to know each other. So we do have an after party, and the links are shared in the chat. You can join the Zoom link, and there will be breakout rooms, and you can meet individually all our resource persons afterwards. And thank you so much, Jovan, Rocco, Ekanjali, and Paolo, and Ruban, and from my side, and Jose. We were so grateful to have you all today, and your extended time on the after party. So we love to see all our participants, and the links are in LinkedIn, Facebook, and in the chat you can find the Zoom link. And as the question asked, we do have recorded the entire session. So the recording will be shared with you as a follow-up email and with plenty of perks. I love Ruban to talk about the perks what we have for all our participants as a gratitude from SenzMate. See you in the next stop at the after party. Thank you so much, everyone. Over to you, Ruban.
Thank you, everybody, for joining, and all my panelists. And it is amazing to hear from the transformation across the globe, because I'm in US, a lot of them in Europe, and then Asia. We cover the end-to-end spectrum of it, and we truly appreciate your time on this one. I think mainly the AI in MedTech. At SenzMate, we specialize in AIoT intelligence, covering everything from embedded system to generative AI and computer vision, enabling groundbreaking innovation in healthcare. Because we have developed technology for example, the healthcare, when you are doing elder care, when you are doing physical therapy, when you are doing pharmaceutical research, when you are doing imaging. We have done so many of these 20 to 25 different vertical products within the MedTech. As well as beyond that, we have done agriculture, we have industrial and all that. We have expertise in so many different areas. So as a special perk for all the participants, SenzMate is offering a limited scale MVP completely free. Actually, that you guys like now, because with a lot of chat GPT and everything, people want things free. So we are offering a free complimentary MVP, allowing you to explore the possibility of AI in MedTech and see how it can drive real impact. So we will be sharing all the details in the follow-up email. So stay tuned. If you are interested, feel free to reach out to me, Miller, and many of the people who are in this group, and we will be free to come and talk to you and develop an MVP idea and provide you the value. As well as, we have a very wider experienced team here, and reach out to Jose and the team, because we could even give how the digital transformation can happen also. So thank you, everybody, again, and we will see you on the after party.